What's up, everybody? Man, I am excited to talk about this bike. I was looking forward to this bike when I first heard about it because it's kind of a different version of one of my favorite bikes out there. This week, we're talking about the Tern HSD. All that coming up next on the e-bike experience. What is up? Oh, man. So let me explain something first before I get into this um, review, which is a review of, I think, more so the experience than actually the bike. Okay, because we can talk about the bike all day and we can talk about how technically cool it is, and I'll get into some of that. But there's definitely people out there who are doing more in-depth reviews of the technical side of the bike. So if you're interested in watts per battery and things like that, definitely you can either come by the shop, come by Electric Bike Avenue Bikes and talk to us about it, or you can look it up online and I'll post some links to some other people who, like I said, who have really studied these bikes and really have put some work in. But today I'm going to talk about this bike because I think it is one of the most versatile bikes that we have in the shop. And what impresses me most about it is what you can do with this thing. So I'll get into all the different accessories and things of that nature. But this week we're going to talk about the Tern HSD. All right, the HSD stands for Hauling Stuff Daily. It is actually the smaller version of another bike called the GSD, where people say that it actually stands for getting stuff done, but we like to say getting the S word done, because it really does get it done. The larger version, I don't want to get too into it because I'll probably end up doing a different review of that one. I actually was going to get the larger version, the GSD, but I live in a second story apartment, and what really sold me was the ability to be able to fold that bike up and get it up 2 stories of stairs and around the corner comfortably. It's weird. It sounds like taking a 60-pound bike up 2 flights of stairs might be difficult, but when you lower the handlebars, and we'll get into that, it really kind of changes the center of gravity and makes it a lot more accessible. So let's get into the Tern HSD. The Tern HSD is what most people call like a mid-cargo bike. So when you look at it, it's not going to be as long as a long hauler or something, or front loader or something of that nature. It's going to be made more for people who like to tow and need to tow some stuff, but aren't that necessarily full family, what you would get with the GSD, where you can haul up to 2 kids on the back and things like that. This is the Tern HSD. You'll look at it right now. There are 3 different models of the HSD. The model that I prefer, and the first one we're going to talk about, is the P9. But let's talk about what all these bikes have in common before we get into that. First of all, they've all got the 20-inch wheel. Most people come in and they say, wow, is it really weird riding on a 20-inch wheel? But what I tell them is 20 miles an hour is 20 miles an hour. So it's a class 1. So if I'm going 20 on a 20-inch wheel and you're going 20 on a 27-inch wheel, it's all 27. It's all the same mile per hour. Sorry about that. The other thing about that is you're talking about a lower center of gravity. So on this bike, you can carry a little bit over 300 pounds of total weight on this. So the reason they have those 20-inch wheels is to lower that center of gravity. And so when you're getting on a bike like this, if you've got all that weight on it, throwing your leg over is not something that you're going to be able to do. So they've really made it easy to do by giving you the step through. And I have another video where I talk about step throughs versus step overs, and we can get into that. But this is the perfect example of why you would want a step through versus a step over. Okay. So they really take care of that and make it a comfy ride. And believe it or not, this bike also comes with a telescoping seat post. So you can actually, they say that you can ride from 4'11" all the way up to 6'5". And I'm full of stories. And I actually had a client come in and she was looking at the HSD, and she was right on that line of 4'11", 5 foot. And so when we went out to do the test ride, she looked at her husband and she said, "How much do you weigh?" And when he met the requirement, he actually was taller. He hopped on the back and she rode him around in the back. And they ended up buying 2 of those, one for each of them for the whole family. So it was a really cool thing to see that the same bike could fit everybody in that family. All right. So that was one of the cool things. And also, it's got what's called an adjustable cockpit. just like a plane, when you're looking out the front, you want to have everything accessible. So what's cool about this is when you actually bring the seat post up, if you look, it's got a little bit of a slack right there. So for the taller people, the more you move the seat back, the further they're going to get away from the handlebars. So it actually has these easily adjustable handles right here that as you move it back, I can move these back and forward and once again keep that comfortable ride. And that's really what you're talking about when you're talking about this bike. You're not talking about speed, you're talking about the ability to carry everything from kids, which you'll see on the Yet Maxi seat over here, to this is actually my personal bike. I just want to put that out there. I'm not paid by Tern. I actually love the bike, and I'm doing this review because I want more people to see it. So don't think I get a paycheck from Tern, but this is actually my personal bike, and we can get into the accessories right now because I think another one of the cool selling points on this bike is the ability to really make it your own. Okay, so this bike right now, I have this set up and I call this sort of my delivery bike. We tend to get pizza at work and sometimes we want to carry water on the front. So we've got it set up in this way. But then again, you can look here and we've got once again, the seat on the back. And all of these things are standard to the HSD. Another cool thing about the HSD that they changed that wasn't on the GSD is the front suspension fork. Anybody who knows about riding around in the city streets, most people think of suspension forks when they think of mountain biking, but we're once again talking about comfort level here. When you have that front shock and you have a lot of weight and you're moving things around, it just adds to the ability to be able to do what you need to do when you're riding that bike. All right. The other thing that we're going to talk about is the ABIS frame lock. When you're riding this bike, it is important. A lot of people ask me from one of the videos I talked about, we talk about security. All of the models come with the ABIS frame lock right here. Now, this lock isn't meant to lock up and leave your bike for an extended period of time. It's just meant to, if you're running into the store or maybe if you're at the park and you're just a couple of feet away from your bike, it's more of a deterrent. Once you lock that lock, you actually cannot ride the bike away. It'll actually lock the rear wheel. So that's another amazingly cool thing that these come with. They all come standard with a rear rack from Atlas, like a sturdy rack. When you're talking about adding that weight, once again, you want something sturdy on there, and that's something that you can also attach your accessories to. I cannot talk enough about accessories. The cash box here is a really cool accessory. What I thought when I first got this bike was how cool would it be to throw an extra tube or a CO2 in there, but in actuality, you can do that, but it's actually just the perfect size to throw your battery charger and the plug-in. So if you're going on that extended trip and you want to charge your battery while you're out, you want to throw that in there, it's just a nice little stash box to throw that in, and you don't have to fill your bags. But I've got a ton of panniers on here, so you can add a ton of stuff. I've actually carried over 100 pounds of rock on this thing before, and didn't feel any of it at all. So that is sort of the stuff that is the same, that is standard to the HSDs. They're all going to come with fenders. They're all going to come with light kits. Now let's talk about a little bit of the differences between the three, okay? They're different in the sense that they do all provide you kind of a different level and a different outlook into how you're riding the HSD. The first model we'll start with is the P9. That's the model that I have. The P9 is sort of your base model. It comes with a standard derailleur, okay? And now, if those who aren't familiar with that, that's going to be the shifter where you're clicking with your pointer finger and go into a lower gear with your thumb, and you'll actually click your chain into place with the derailleur. I prefer the P9 because I like to click my gears and I like to feel that feel of I did this, I know where it is. I feel like it's a little more responsive than some of the other stuff, not in a bad way, but once again, this is just my personal preference. A lot of people will look at the P9 and they'll say, okay, well, that's the entry level. I think it really comes down to preference, and we'll also talk a little bit about price point on that too, because the P9 comes in at $31.99, and there's a little bit of a difference in price when we get to the next level. So pretty much, once again, on the P9, you're just going with the standard derailleur on that one. The next one we're going to talk about is the S8i. That's sort of the mid-level. It's not sort of, it actually is the mid-level. And what changes on that is once the price level goes up to $37.99, but you're adding a Gates belt carbon drive to it. You're adding the Shimano Nexus rear internal hub onto the back. You're actually also adding a grip shifter. So once again, now you're starting to change up your drivetrain a little bit into more I think a little that person who is not so used to the performance of a click, but is comfortable with I'm just out more for a ride and I don't need it to be like clickety clack and get right in. Carbon belts don't need a lot of maintenance. So you're talking about a standard derailleur. On the P9, you're looking at more tune-ups and more things of that nature. But when you get into a Gates belt drive, you're not looking at any stretch in the belt. You're not really worried about dirt and stuff like that. Still got the same 400 watt power pack. So you're still getting the same amount of distance and the same amount of torque and things like that. But you definitely upgrade. I was actually out riding the other day and a guy on an S8 flew past me and I'm like thinking to myself, we got the same thing, but he's got that carbon belt and it's a little more efficient. So that is an impressive thing about that. Once again, not my type of thing, but the S8i, I know lots of people that prefer that and are into that grip shifter. It actually, from what I've heard, it's a lot more natural feeling to shift up and shift down in that motion as opposed to that. So I get it. The third model that we're going to talk about is the S Plus. When I first heard about it, I didn't really wrap my mind around what it meant to have an automatic shifting inside. I got it like an automatic car, but for the longest time, they actually had it blurred out, so you couldn't even see what the technology was. But the S9 is, the S Plus comes with the Inviolo hub, and it has automatic shifting. So what it actually does is, unlike all the other bikes that we have, it actually senses when you need to shift and shifts for you. You dial in the cadence that you want that bike to shift at, and it will feel and keep you at that cadence when you're riding. For those who don't understand, it is insane. I've been on this bike, and it feels so crazy to feel the bike. I mean, it really does sense when you need to go, and you don't feel a click. It's a gradual movement. Now, I can talk about variable hubs and get into all that. Once again, that's for somebody else. I think this video is for people who just want to understand the different experience that exists between these rides. The ride on the S Plus, people love it, okay? They get on this thing. It's luxury, all right? I'm not going to even lie to you. It comes with the Cane Creek Thud Buster, and it's the short travel, and I think that's important because I actually thought that I could put a long travel on mine, but it actually made this really weird motion, and I don't want to do what that weird motion is because it would look weird on camera, but it really hurt my back. So actually, I think it's really smart that they have the short travel. I mean, like all these little things play into what makes this, the technology on this bike amazing. And the last one I'm going to talk about that we don't even have, and I'm going to put some pictures up for you to see it. I think everybody who knows Tern and knows this bike has been waiting for it since this came out. But now the S11 is the 28 mile an hour class 3 version. We do not have that in yet, but we will. All the other Terns that we have are class 1, so top speed on that is 20 miles an hour. I just scratched the surface on Tern. If you want to learn more about Tern, once again, come by the shop. We're at Electric Avenue Bikes, 3613 Woodward. We've got all 3 styles of the HSD. We've got 2 different styles of the GSD, and we can really go out and ride. Tune in every time we post one of these. Spread the word. Make sure you subscribe to the Ride Detroit YouTube channel, and we'll see you soon in the future.